What happens here with the DOJ investigation? So he was indicted yesterday, like you mentioned earlier. There are two parties to this claim. Tom Ward started Chesapeake with Aubrey McClendon, then he started Sandridge, now he's at Tapstone, and now Sandridge has been that other company. Explain to us what the problem is, what that indictment was, and what happens from here.
Well, the indictment is actually focused on Aubrey McClendon, so that's going to be a little bit tricky. They do not, as far as we know, yet have an indictment for the company that we've now identified as Sandridge, which is called Company B in that indictment. So it remains to be seen if the grand jury will hand up that indictment at some point and continue this case.
And we do have a statement from the DOJ saying the Department of Justice is saddened to hear about the death of Aubrey McClendon. We offer our condolences to his family and loved ones.
So there's been no one else from any other company that's got tied up in these charges, these rigging charges?
No, and actually Chesapeake itself got immunity as part of this deal. They were cooperating with the federal government to get this grand jury indictment. So as of yet, there may be other investigations in the work. We just don't know about that.
Is what Aubrey McClendon was accused of doing, was that exceptional in the energy industry?
Well, there actually was a settlement last year in Michigan with the Michigan Attorney General regarding Chesapeake and a company called Encana over these same sorts of charges where they were supposedly colluding to fix the amount of money they would pay to drill on land.
And to be clear, what that would mean is I would go to you and try and get your parents' land and lease it, and then I would lease that land to a competitor, but for a low price. So there were no bidders, there was no one racking up the price, it was all low, and sort of that's how you would keep those costs low, but yet the other company was in on it as well. So that's what the indictment is really about. Interestingly enough, McClendon, after he left Chesapeake Energy, he did start American Energy Partners, which was basically the same kind of thing. It was leasing
a miniature
land.
Chesapeake?
Yeah, it was more than $10 billion of basically other people's money, and leased about 600,000 acres in Ohio, West Virginia, Oklahoma, and Texas to explore for oil and gas.
So this was part of his comeback. How much traction did he get on this comeback, Tina?
Well, you know, as Alix mentioned, he got quite a substantial amount of money. It's nothing to sneeze at. He got backing from private equity, from First Reserve, from Blackstone's GSO, from a corporation called Energy and Minerals Group, which is run by the ex-CEO of Exxon, his son, John Raymond. So he had backing from some serious people in the industry and from serious money to continue with these ventures. And as Alix mentioned, you know, he was acquiring land again, which is his normal way of doing business, and also extending into Australia and other places to try to bring the shale revolution overseas.
And basically, if you just think back in the day, I mean, Aubrey McClendon and Tom Ward, they co-founded Chesapeake. They were basically like land lease guys. They would go to you, they'd lease your land, and then they'd go and release it to a bigger oil company and kind of pocket the difference. That's how they started. And then they went from that to building Chesapeake, which is the biggest producer of natural gas in the United States. And then he sort of had to move on from that. So this sort of transformation and what he was able to do with his career is just an enormous hole in the energy community.
So these charges and this indictment, how does it link up with the financial troubles that Chesapeake faced later on?
Well, it's part of the legacy that Chesapeake is trying to get rid of since they've parted ways with Aubrey. They've been trying to undo a lot of the things that he put in place, a great deal of the debt, obviously, some of the perks that he offered, which had to be cut back as they were looking to sell assets. And as I said, they're cooperating, or they were cooperating with the federal government on this probe.
And I do want to point out that I did get a response from Chesapeake Energy. They put out a statement in regards to Aubrey McClendon's passing. He said, the company is saying Chesapeake is deeply saddened by the news that we have heard today, and our thoughts and prayers are with the McClendon family during this difficult time.
Yeah, something definitely that the energy community was shocked by. To what extent is the DOJ's investigation now over? I mean, how do they proceed from here? I know that in your latest story you talked about the unnamed company potentially being Sandridge based on our reporting, but what happens next? Does it stop in its tracks because of this accident or this tragedy?
Well, at this point, we're waiting to see if they can get the indictment of that Company B. They don't have it so far as we're aware. So without that, you know, they don't really move forward.
And to sort of to put this more into perspective, we reached out to T. Boone Pickens on the passing of Mr. McClendon. This is what he said. He said, "I've known Aubrey McClendon for nearly 25 years. He was a major player in leading the stunning energy renaissance in America. He was charismatic and a true American entrepreneur. No individual is without flaws, but his impact on American energy will be long lasting. And that really echoes what we heard from Sharif Suki. Like, yeah, he might have done some stuff, but he was a pioneer. He was a cowboy. This is what he did, and he changed the world. In essence.
The shale industry is what it is today because in part of what Aubrey
Yes.
McClendon did.